Hello everyone and welcome to Girl Talk. My name is Jessica Jade and I'll be your host. Today's guest is Mary Vin Rose. She's a producer, an actor, and a TV host, best known for her cable series Healthy Living in the Bronx, which is featured on the Bronx Net, correct? So Mary's show highlights people and organizations that are making the Bronx healthier for its residents, and I've actually been on the show. Go check that episode out. It's available on YouTube.
We'll make sure we put the link down below.
Yep, so Mary, thank you so much for coming on the show.
I'm so excited to be here.
I know, girl. This is my buddy, so I'm excited to interview her. It's really going to be like friends talking. So before we actually get into all of the amazing stuff that you're doing in TV and in the media, which is a lot, let's talk a little bit about the past. You were an event planner, right? And there was a moment, and I know this because we're friends, but there was a moment in your event planning career that really sparked your mental health and self-love journey. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So there's actually like everything. There's like, you want to think that there's like an aha moment, but it's always a series of things.
Yeah.
But I did have a day that made me pause more than usual. So it was a normal day. Honestly, I went to work, everything seemed to be fine, but I don't know, there was nothing out of the ordinary. I didn't have any big projects or anything. For some reason, I was just feeling this high level of anxiety, and I went to the bathroom, and all of a sudden, I couldn't breathe. Like, I literally grabbed my chest, I'm like, what is happening? It felt like my heart was like being squished, and at the time, I didn't know what an anxiety attack was, so I'm like, I'm having a heart attack.
Right.
At 20-something years old, I'm dying. Thank God one of my coworkers was there, and she helped me. Because I actually collapsed, she helped me up, and I did go to the doctor, and he told me what it was. And long story short, I think that day is kind of when I started to develop the difference between self-care and self-love, because on the outside, if you looked at me, I looked extremely healthy. Like, I was fit, I went to the gym, my nails were always done, my hair was always done, but it was really that day I realized that I didn't really love myself. I wasn't pouring into myself positive things. I was in a toxic environment. I was eating things that weren't the best for me, and my excuse was because I was doing a job that was paying me well so I could take care of my family. And that's probably one of my biggest takeaways for anyone that works for a company or works for anyone in general. Like, they will replace you like that. So if you don't take care of yourself, who else is? So that saying, health is wealth, is for real. Like, you have to take care of yourself.
How has that moment promoted the work that you do within the community?
I think the biggest thing for me has been just being honest and transparent about that story. As you know, for those of you who don't know, I actually wrote a piece for Jessica's blog. You should go check it out.
I'll put the link here.
And it was, you know how hard that piece was for me to write. Like, I literally called you and was like, I can't talk about this. But I actually had a friend reach out to me recently, and I was telling her my story about like starting therapy and things of that nature. And she recently reached out and was like, because of you, I'm considering going to a therapist. Like, but I'm scared about the money, the co-pays. I said, well, look at your insurance. Believe it or not, depending on your state, there's plenty of different options for you. Therapy might actually be free, or your copay may be as little as $20.
Right.
And $20 may seem like a lot if you're going once a week, but it's really not. Like, your mental health is so important to everything you do, because if you are getting your body right, but you're not getting your mind right, it really doesn't matter.
Exactly. I'm so proud of you for talking about this, because I know, for those of you that don't know, yes, she's on a TV show, she's an actress, she does all this stuff, but she's actually shy, and she doesn't like to talk about certain things. And your growth, I think maybe you wrote that piece for me less than a year ago, has been so tremendous. And I think that the show that you're on, Healthy Living in the Bronx, and that you produce, and you're the executive director and all this stuff, this show has really gotten you out of your shell.
Definitely.
Can you tell us how that show came about?
So there's always a short story, and then there's the long story, right? I'm gonna try to do the short story. So the short story was I had a production course, and my professor challenged me to create a show within 24 hours. And at first she was kind of joking, but I took it as a challenge, and I was like, I'm gonna do it. So I created a pilot, I pitched it, and I had a certain deadline that I had to have a host. And I couldn't make the deadline for the host, so my guys were like, well, at least for the pilot, just use yourself. So I did, and
she was great.
but you also know because you helped me with the pilot, and I was shaking.
Yeah,
I was like, the actual episode went flawless. I was like, whoa, I look back at like, hey.
We were very good.
I was like, yes, I did that. And then, but the moment afterwards, I was like, you know what, I have to face these fears.
There's growth in those moments.
Yeah, and then I think
because you weren't in danger, right?
I wasn't in danger.
It wasn't that kind of fear. It was more like, oh my God, do I belong here? Like, is this something that I'm supposed to be doing? Because I know you used to work more so behind the camera.
Yeah, so I've always been involved in production, film, TV, always. Even when I was an event planner, I did freelance for movie sets. Actually, I have a short film who like, it's not a person, but it feels like a baby, that's been in 3 different film festivals in New York City, which I'm really, really proud of.
What's it called?
Revelations. Shout out to my Revelations team that watched this. Like, I'm really proud of that project because it has such a strong message, and I hope more people get to see it.
And you acted in it too.
I did. I almost forget that I acted in it.
She does it all.
I did, but it was like, I guess it was a cameo. Like, I did a crying scene in the beginning. I remember my director going, Mary, cut, and I was like still crying.
You're like, I have to try to stop. Hold on, I'm in it.
I was in it. I was committed. No, but going back to the show, I'm proud of the show for so many reasons. So obviously the show has definitely helped me, but one of the reasons why, because think about it, out of all the shows I could have created, why did I create this wellness show? Right. And why did I make it so Bronx driven?
I love that. That was one of my favorite things about the show, for sure.
And it's because out of the 62 counties in New York State, the Bronx has been deemed the unhealthiest.
Right.
And because I was on my own wellness journey, I was just like, there has to be a way that I can get the help I need without going to Manhattan.
Yeah.
And I felt like I didn't have the resources around me. And then I was just like, I know.
They have to be there.
They have to be here. There has to be people in our borough that want to make a difference, who's making a difference, and I want to highlight these individuals. And, I can't wait for season 2 because I'm starting to ask the harder questions. Not of my guests per se, but hopefully to the public, to the general, to our politicians, that why is that? Why out of the 62 counties in New York State is the Bronx deemed the unhealthiest, and we're also one of the most populated counties in New York State, and it's not a secret that we're predominantly black and brown. So with that being said, is it a lack of accessibility? Is it a lack of resources? Or is it just we just don't want to be healthy? Is that really it?
Right.
Because I doubt that.
I don't think that's it at all.
Or is it systemic? Is there some intention or neglect, whatever it is?
So what topics have you already covered or will be covering that are like near and dear to your heart?
So things that matter the most to me, near and dear. So recovering from abusive relationships, that was a big one. Learning to positively talk to yourself. Actually, one of my favorite things about our episode together was I didn't know that fragrance was technically an intellectual property, and people don't have to tell you what's in it, and that's probably one of the number one irritants that people experience and face, because I was experiencing breakouts and I couldn't understand it. Now I realize that anything that has like artificial fragrance can and may have a big consequence or cause in bad health for myself. So moving forward in season 2, talking more about nutrition is important to me. Definitely talking about fitness. We'll do probably more activities in season 2. Something else that we're going to talk about big in season 2 is financial literacy.
I love that.
Because it's such a big issue
that no one talks about. People hate talking about money.
Yeah, they really do. It came to me because I was talking to one of my girlfriends and I said, I'm doing this individual like investment portfolio and whatnot, and she was like, wait, what's that? I was like, what do you mean? So we started talking about it, and then I was like, wait, do you have a savings account? She was like, no. I was like, you don't have a savings account? Like, what are you gonna do? Like, and it didn't dawn on me that
other people
don't
have this information,
and it makes sense because I didn't learn that in school.
No, we didn't, and we went to high school together, so I would know.
Yeah, we didn't learn that in school.
We definitely didn't.
And I went to performing arts school before high school. So, even for creatives, like, you focus so much on the creativity, but you don't focus on the business, money, accounting end. And that's how so many of us who really, the story that Hollywood loves to portray us as, coming from nothing to something, we really don't know what to do. And I don't know if that's an accident, but at the same time, if your grandmother, your mother, her mother, and her mother, and or father, and father, and father, if they don't know how to, they can't teach you what they don't know.
Right.
So it's like, whose responsibility is that? Is that society? Is that ours? And you know, we go deeper.
I think
into
it's a
those
little
things.
bit of both, but I think that's why your show is so important, because it's touching on so many different topics that a lot of people wouldn't consider.
Right.
You know? And on that note, how do you believe that television and media do they have a responsibility to portray wellness as diverse? Do you believe that what role does television and media have in the wellness sphere?
Because I feel like we all been having this conversation about representation, right? Representation matters. And I noticed when I would watch certain programs that featured wellness experts,
Yeah,
they didn't look like us.
no, they
They didn't look like us. And as we've discussed offline, you know, it's great to go to these big wellness conferences, but there is a cultural relevance that needs to happen. Like, don't get me wrong, I have my favorite, you know, bloggers who are like tall, blonde, and they're awesome. They're great. I mean, beautiful, talented. Like I said, I follow them, I support them.
Right.
But there's a cultural disconnect sometimes with certain, especially when it comes to food or even when it comes to working out.
Yeah.
They just don't understand certain things. And not to say I feel like they don't want to, but the constant thing we hear is, you know, black and brown people don't really do that. That's not their thing. They're not about that.
And we hear that from the media, but we also hear it from ourselves.
Yeah, we do.
And which is even more damaging.
Yeah, I wanted to change that stigma a lot. It's not, again, you can't say what the media is responsible for, because they're going to do whatever makes them money.
True.
They're business driven for the most part. I think it's our responsibility to demand more, and more importantly, it's our responsibility to be the change that we want to see. So, for example, like the show, I could have chose any other topic, but I wanted to serve my community in this way because they deserve it.
Yeah.
They deserve it, and that's what made me feel fulfilled. I think as creatives, we're like, you know this, like, we get into this space where, like, I just want to create. I need to create for myself. You know, you get these, like, intense, like, feelings of needing to create when you're creative. But the show is more, like, I've learned so much about myself from the show, but I've learned so much about my community. And it gives me nothing but joy to highlight women. Like one of the best things that happened when I think you texted me, you was like, my grandma watched me on TV for the first time.
Yeah.
That means everything to me.
That was a big deal. Like, my dad recorded it.
Yeah, and I'm hoping to do that.
They had a whole watch party.
Yes, I love that. So many people hit me up with their watch parties. That means something to me, because I want you to have that. I want you to use this as a portfolio to go to, you know, the big, you know, let's say a Fox station or whatever, and say, hey, I'm an expert in this. You should have me come on and use my expertise.
Yeah.
That matters to me.
Yeah.
Being a part of that journey for you and any other wellness profession, especially women of color.
Right. And I love that, Mary, because, you know, and it's interesting that you said, you know, the media, they don't necessarily have a responsibility because they're business driven, but us as creatives, we have the responsibility. Right. And you took that responsibility upon yourself, just as I did. I'm like, I'm going to create a YouTube channel, and I'm going to create a show, and I'm going to feature women of color exclusively who are in wellness.
Right.
And it's for the same reason. It's important for our community to know that we exist, that we're here, that we're doing the work, and that they have access to us. That it's not just beautiful, tall, skinny blonde girls that do this, which is great, and they should do it. There's room for them, but there's also room for us. And especially because we're doing such what's the word?
Groundwork, root work.
Yeah, we're starting from the bottom.
Like, literally.
You know?
There's no blueprint for this. Like,
there isn't.
Like, people told me that I was crazy to do a wellness talk show. Like, that's absurd.
Like, no one's gonna watch that.
Like, no one's gonna watch that. I'm
Little
like,
did they know.
I'm like, people watch, I guess, Dr. Oz, right? It's kind of like, you know, like, technically, but I want people to know that health living in the Bronx, we're not against traditional medicine.
Right, of course.
Someone's actually called me up and like, are you against doctors? No, I'm actually going to have some doctors come on season 2. And I interview doctors for other shows that I work on.
But you have options, people.
Right. It's about those holistic options. And I think you do a really good job with that on the blog. Like, I told you that. I love that you talk about feminine care. I hope to talk more about that in season 2 because I feel like there's such a taboo around it, right?
Like vaginas?
Black blasphemy. Did she use the V word?
The other day I found a blog that's called The Vagina Blog. And at first I was like, oh my God. And then I was like, I need to know more about this blog. And I just went all up in that blog. I was there for like 2 hours. But it's because we're craving this information and we don't have it. So on that note, what kind of impact do you, as a woman of color, do you want to leave behind in our community?
Oh, I think the biggest impact is you are not what other people think about you.
I love that.
You're not. You're not what other people think about you. You are always who you are underneath. And I think sometimes we think that our job is what our purpose is.
Right.
And it's not.
Mm-hmm.
You can utilize whatever job you're in to fulfill purpose. Like I know one of my natural innate gifts is that I'm a connector, and that I've always had a natural ability to tell stories. And I remember an interview that someone else did with me. She asked me, well, if you identify as an introvert or you're shy, why would you go in front of the camera? And I said, because I want other women to know, or just people in general, that actually women of color, I want them to know that one, we're not always the stereotype that you have on TV, and two, many of us are introverted and shy and nerdy, and that's okay. And more importantly, we can tell stories, and our story matters, our voice matters. And if I can get up and like you know this, before, like people may not know this, because when I was in high school I would do speeches, and before my speech I would throw up. It was really bad. It was so bad, guys. And even now sometimes it gets really bad. But I do what I have to do to still show up for myself and for my community. So my biggest legacy takeaway is that you are always you. And that is truly your superpower. And don't let anyone minimize or make your voice feel insignificant.
I love that, Mary. Can you tell us where we can find you?
Yes.
And all the good work that you're doing?
So you can find me personally on Instagram at Mary Vin Rose. You can find me on Facebook at Mary Vin Rose. You can find me on YouTube at Mary Vin Rose. You can watch the show Healthy Living in the Bronx every Wednesday Eastern Standard Time at 8:30 p.m. The show time might change, so make sure you actually subscribe to my YouTube channel, because that's where I'll be kind of making the updates. I also have a website at maryvinrose.com. I'm a speaker, actor, host, and I write for my show, because as Jessica said, I'm an executive producer, so if you need someone for that, I do those things too.
She's very multifaceted, y'all, and talented.
That's what you have to be nowadays. Gotta be boss babes out here, running things.
Thank you so much for coming on the show, Mary. This was great. I'm so excited for my audience to have access to Healthy Living in the Bronx and all of the work that you're doing, because it really is helping our community in ways that I don't even think you can imagine.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you for watching Girl Talk.
Big hug.
Hugs. See you in 2 weeks.
Who run the world? Girls, girl.